This is The KJ Show. The KJ Show with host Dr. Katherine Johnson is a mix of breaking news and practical advice on the many ways in which the energy industry can affect you and your family. Katherine will combine energy updates and conversations with leaders in the energy efficiency community. So please welcome your host, Dr. KJ.
Hello and welcome to the KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host on my new YouTube channel. I'm so excited you could join today. Today I'm talking about something that's getting the news, but probably isn't getting as much coverage in the news as it should. The hidden costs of electrification, this move to electrify everything, to get away from gas ovens and to get away from gas heat. There's a lot of costs and unintended consequences of those decisions. And some of those policy decisions have actually been pushed back. But so that's the focus of today's show. But I always like to start with something fun and in the theme of you cannot make this stuff up. So our favorite environmental activist, Greta Thunberg, there's a picture of her. She's, I guess, now 22 or so, has decided, along with her friends from the Eco Extinction Rebellion, to actually start putting dye in various waters in Italy. She was banned and fined after she put in and dyed the Venice waterways green is a protest against the COP30 meetings because nothing happened in Italy, apparently, and to her liking. She didn't like the way that Italy handled COP30 climate change issues, so she and her friends decided to go start pouring dye in the fountains in Padua and Rome and all kinds of different places. And she also was basically protesting the end of the COP30 United Nations climate conference in the Amazon, which I can understand why, because it actually did absolutely nothing, and the indigenous peoples were pretty much ignored. But the group says the dye was environmentally safe, but others says the Luca Syed, the regional leader, said the stunt was disrespectful to Venice's history and warned it could harm the fragile city. Vandalism doesn't protect the environment, he wrote in an Italian on social media. But he did say that the protest was legitimate, but it did underscore the leaders' failed attempt to address climate change. The Extinction Rebellion also did demonstrations in 10 other Italian cities, including Genoa and Padua, the rivers of Turin, Bologna, and Toronto. The group criticized the prime minister's government for being against strong climate measures at the COP30. Well, I hate to say, most of the world leaders were against any strong climate measures at COP30 because COP30, as I said in my Substack a couple of weeks ago, was basically a cop-out. They really didn't do anything. They just got together, tore down the Amazon forest, built a conference center, and went back to their merry way, leaving the indigenous peoples to fend for themselves, which is usually what happens when you get a bunch of climate activists together. Hypocrisy occurs. But that was something interesting. Another thing that happened, and this is something that's even closer to home, in New Jersey, the developer who co-owner of the Minnesota Vikings. So this guy is a huge billionaire, Ziggy Wolf. He has a proposed development, you can put up the next picture, that he wants to build 496 apartments in Second Watchung River Ridge in New Jersey. Now, used to live in that part of New Jersey. It's actually very, very rural and has a lot of old growth forests. And that's like not Hoboken. This is back towards the Pennsylvania side of New Jersey. And I lived in a little town called Dover, and it's beautiful. Horseback riding, equestrian. I think that's where the U.S. equestrian team is headquartered. It is a beautiful area. You wouldn't even think of it as a traditional New Jersey. There's a reason they call it the Garden State. The property sits above, the second Watchung Ridge, the last old growth forest in Essex County, the most densely populated county in the nation. It's home to deer, turtles, songbirds, and 89,000 trees. But they want to actually cut it down. Why? Because they want to make affordable housing. Well, I would argue that the songbirds and the turtles need affordable housing too. Why cut down their homes to build homes for somebody else? They want to help it. They say they want to help meet its affordable housing obligations for West Orange County. Who has the affordable housing obligations and where do they come from and who made them? That's an interesting question. Apparently, the Essex Highland Development Company, which is a subsidy that the billionaire owns, was actually part of the reason that they have these affordable housing guidelines. And he proposed originally building single family homes, but that got rejected because I guess they weren't going to be affordable. And then because the slopes were too steep, the emergency access was limited, and the ecosystems were too fragile. That was back in 2017 to 2015, 27 to 2015. But there was renewed pressure to make the affordable mandates bring forward, and that's why it actually was coming back. So the environmentalists who are protesting this old growth forest being cut down are actually bitten by the other side that says there's this mandate to build affordable housing. At what cost? At what expense? Apparently, growth forests are going to pay the price. So there was a Supreme Court decision. It was called the Mount Laurel Doctrine. And then it basically, after submitting another proposal, all of a sudden that one got approved. So they're going to be able to put in these multifamily housing. Apparently, multifamily housing doesn't have the same restrictions as single family housing, which I find quite odd. But they said that now they can bypass local zoning and go directly to the state. And the township officials gave the developers a seat at the table. So in 2020, they agreed to do this, to tear down old growth forests and build affordable housing projects. But as one county official pointed out, it's ridiculous that townships and residents affected by the proposed development don't have a standing to challenge these decisions, according to the president of another environmental group in New Jersey. So they're letting developers come to the table, bypass the normal zoning process, and tear down trees to build houses. Residents also point that there's been a lot of flood disasters in New Jersey. Removing the forest canopy will actually cause environmental harm, strip away a natural flood buffer, and experts at Princeton Hydro, a consulting firm, basically said that beyond the tree loss, the runoff helps suck up water, acres of new pavement, and rooftops will intensify runoff. So, in other words, they're going to tear down these forests to make affordable housing that really is always interesting, affordable. That's a notion that I don't know where it came from. Well, but the point is, why are we sacrificing forests for more houses? And why do they get a pass because a guy's a billionaire? Doesn't make sense to me. And if you really care about the environment, these are the forests you should be protecting. Well, what do I know? I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host, and you're watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my YouTube channel, and I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, on my new YouTube channel. And today I'm talking about the hidden costs of electrification. Now, a lot of country or cities and state governments, and Maryland, where I used to live, are all promoting this notion that we need to electrify everything. We got to get rid of gas stoves. We got to have electric vehicles. The problem is that, well, twofold. One, we don't have enough grid. There's not enough electricity generation to handle the electrification of everything. And secondly, these moves are being in place without really thinking things through. So, yeah, they're going to build more electric power plants, but they're going to rely on fossil fuel, natural gas, coal, which is not part of the decarbonization plan. So they're moving full speed ahead, again, kind of contradicting themselves. We want more electricity. We can't generate it with renewables enough. So we're going to increase natural gas and fossil fuels. Okay, I think that's ridiculous. We should go to hydro. But anyway, so there's a lot of hidden and unintended consequences of pushing to electrify everything. And the US is, promoting the electric vehicles and data centers and heat pumps, even cold climate heat pumps. Yet the power feeding them is increasingly becoming used natural gas and fossil fuels like coal. So where is the sense of that? If you're opposed to fossil fuels, why are you using it to generate electricity? The US building is also building power capacity for the new AI centers, which are really popping up all over everywhere, but without any, quote, meaningful carbon cuts. It means that, I love this, the future of clean tech will be powered by dirty energy. Nobody seems to talk about that at all. And they don't understand, again, the unintended consequences of these strategies that they put into place and think they're going to make the world better when in fact they make it worse off. So the understanding the hidden costs of electrification includes they need significant infrastructure upgrades. As I said many times, it took us about 50 years to build a highway system after Ford invented the first car. And that was because Eisenhower. Eisenhower did a lot of amazing things. But 50 years from the time the car became something that people had, and it took them a long time before they even could even afford a car, to then having an interstate highway system. So why are we expecting we can do it in 10 or 15 years? We can't. They also said that the battery disposal, end of life management for batteries can incur all kinds of environmental and recycling costs. Absolutely. One thing that's not mentioned, and I wish it was mentioned more, is solar panels, once they're done, and they do not live to the 25-year life cycle they're supposed to, they only last about 15 years. Well, there's no way to recycle solar panels. So guess what? They ship them back to Africa, and then poor people in Africa mine all the valuable minerals that are embedded in the solar panels, like silver and gold, and in the process, are harmed by the toxic substances that are also in the solar panels. So I was in a discussion yesterday about how solar panels are environmentally friendly, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause a stir. But if there's no way to recycle solar panels successfully and completely, why are they considered renewable energy? Because they're not. It's not clean. And then, of course, you have this whole other thing with the batteries. There's also this electric increased demand means that you're going to have higher rates and the need for new power plants. Are they going to be nuclear, or are they going to be natural fuel, or are they going to be more coal fired power plants? And it sounds like now the administration is thinking about reopening some coal fired plants and also, approving more nuclear plants. I'm from the all in group. I believe we need everything, because no one solution is enough, and we should be diversified. That's just a smart strategy. Maintenance costs are also higher. Electric vehicles have higher maintenance and repair costs. If you take a Tesla vehicle that's harmed to another non-dealer, your Tesla warranty is voided, and there you're out $25,000 or $30,000. The supply chain issues, and this is becoming very apparent in every single thing. The COVID epidemic really did slow absolutely everything down, and now it takes years and years to get the parts we need to build transformers, to build material costs for batteries and components that can affect all the different ways in which the grid is powered. It should not take 2 to 3 years to get the parts to build a transformer to power a community, but it does. And then there's also the problem is we don't have enough skilled workers who actually understand how to do all this electrification stuff. There's a lot of different costs, and again, people are just charging ahead, pun intended, without understanding. Yes, go ahead. Without understanding all of the hidden costs of the economic barriers, the energy security concerns, safety concerns. These are all hidden costs that we haven't really thought about. The other mistake is that they are actually pushing for this electrification without having a way to push decarbonization. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of 100% decarbonization, but I do understand the argument that's being made is why are we pushing to have all this electricity thinking it's a clean energy source when it's not if it's fueled by fossil fuels or natural gas or I think nuclear is clean. But I always like to tell my friends who have their electric vehicles that yeah, you feel real good about that, being able to charge that electric vehicle and they don't have to go to the gas station. But the problem is the electricity you're using to charge your electric vehicle was probably generated by natural gas or coal. So how clean is it? Not really. You can put up the next graph too. They're also basically, I don't expect people to read this. I just sort of wanted to highlight that these are all the different problems that this forced move to electrification can create. It's expensive, we're not prepared, there's security concerns. And the other thing is the environmentalists, the policymakers, I guess, I don't know what they're doing, but they decided to ignore environmental concerns again, and embrace more fossil fuel usage. In practical terms, this means that they're going to build more natural gas and fossil fuel plants to power this push towards electrification that's supposed to push and propel us to a green economy. Are you confused? Because I sure am. It doesn't make any sense to do this. You can do the next graph. I think we have one more. And if we don't, that's fine. The idea of electrification without decarbonization has been adopted by a lot of executives, including Google, former CEO, and speaking at a summit with other AI executives. This is what he said. Um, Forget about your climate targets. We won't achieve them anyway. So we don't have to worry about it. So we're just going to put up more AI centers and we're not going to worry about how they're fueled. Um, it's interesting. I always thought that I never really believed that Google and all these big tech companies were all that environmentally concerned or all that in about, climate change. No, when it becomes an economic decision, economics wins. And Google wants to have AI centers, and they don't really care where that power is coming from. And they'll pay for it if they have to, but chances are they may actually not pay all the costs, which is causing a lot of consternation, and it's raising prices and it's cutting off supply for all the other residents in the community. So the problem is that these investments will either be um, inside the fence, or the utility is going to cover them, or the customers are going to cover them. But it's creating a lot of dismay. And it's sort of AI centers popping up everywhere to electrify everything is not a good environmental solution either. So where do we go? That's an interesting question. Stay right there. I'll be right back. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my new YouTube channel. Stay tuned.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, and welcome back to The KJ Show on my new YouTube channel. I'm Dr. KJ, and today I'm talking about the hidden costs of electrification, this push that's supposed to make us all feel good because we're using electricity, which is a green fuel. Not necessarily. And there's again, like many of these thoughts, these policies that are enacted, they're not really thought through well. I wonder if any of these politicians or policymakers ever took a strategic planning course because it seems like they're missing strategy. Like, what are the attendant effects? What are the consequences? They don't seem to have that figured out. So, adding to this electrification boom is also the boom of EV vehicles, which I don't know how much longer they're going to be around. There's this global transition. They've been promoting this transition to EVs for a long time. And they basically say that it's, transportation. It's going to be fundamentally changing the way the world operates. We're going to get rid of internal combustion engines or ICE, but that's not realistic either. Beneath the surface of clean energy lies the decades long challenges. They don't have the raw materials, and they have to go get them from the cobalt and lithium and mines in Africa. They have metal refining bottlenecks. They have geopolitical frictions. I mean, why is China leading the charge in EV building and construction? And they're basically not ready to scale up. The policymakers are advocating for something that just isn't ready. It's not ready for prime time. EV and battery manufacturers are colliding with the internal structure weaknesses of the supply chain. Just like we can't get the parts we need to build transformers, we can't get the parts we need in America to build the EVs and the batteries. There's also, I guess we just found a rare earth deposit in, I believe, Nevada that should help with the EV batteries, but that's not the only thing. Basically, it's understanding that in order to have EVs, you have to be able to manufacture EV batteries, which are very harmful to the environment and use rare earth element. The U.S.'s supply chain isn't actually doing very well either. Does anyone remember the bottlenecks in the L.A. ports and all the other places during COVID and after COVID, where those ships couldn't unload things and things were held up for months and months? Our supply chain is broken. Globally, the supply chain is broken, and that means that in order for this EVs to actually take off, and fulfill their promise, they have to increase the supply chain, have to fix those things, and also, develop a strategic plan for grid investments and innovation. And solid state batteries may be a solution, but they're not really a practical solution, at least not in the near term. There's a findings that were published in the Environmental Science and Technology magazine. They said that companies or countries must think strategically about building up their electrification strategies, which no one is doing. Battery manufacturing, apparently, the team underscored the importance of understanding the environmental impacts of mining for batteries, all the parts that they need, the air pollution, and the unintended consequences of the transition to electric vehicles. This is also interesting. Apparently, with the development of alternative batteries, so you're not going to have CO2, you're going to have SO2 or SOx. So you exchange one form of bad, harmful greenhouse gas for another. And SOx is a really bad one. That's even worse than carbon dioxide. So I love this quote. People generally expect the transition to a greener technology is always going to be a win-win. However, there's climate and air quality benefits, but without considering manufacturing, you might lower carbon and nitrogen oxide emissions, but end up increasing air pollution for communities near the manufacturing centers. And that's one of the big criticism about fossil fuel plants is they were built in areas where low-income people lived, and it caused air pollution. But building EV batteries also creates air pollution. Where are the people protesting that? Nowhere to be found. India, EV battery production in India could increase SOx or SO2 pollution, with China and India facing different but very bad challenges. They don't have clean supply chains. They have strict pollution standards, and alternative battery chemistries are not there. So no one is regulating the pollution. So not only does China use a lot of coal and have a lot of coal plants, they're also polluting it with their building for their lithium batteries to power their EVs. So, and refining minerals could lead to pollution hotspots near manufacturing centers as well. So, what are we doing? We're basically playing a shell game. We're switching the manufacturing and the concerns that are caused by coal generation to ones that are caused by SOx generation or sulfur oxide. How is that better? It isn't. That's the point. And, CO2 is absorbed by plants. I don't know what absorbs SOx, nitrous, sulfuric oxygen. I don't know what absorbs that. That is a bigger threat. So, in a rush to save the world, aren't we destroying it? It's scary. The other problem is that, we had a big push towards EVs. Go ahead and put the graphic up. EV vehicles. Here it is, talking about this chart I had, talking about all the different supply chain challenges that are occurring because there's this push for EVs. On the flip side, though, the Trump administration pretty much cut the tax credits for EVs, which pretty much gutted the market. What does that tell you? If you have to get a $2,500 tax credit in order to think about buying an EV, probably isn't an economic decision without it. Why should it need a $2,500 inducement? That's a big rebate. We don't do that on other things. So now that the tax cuts are going away at the end of the year, there's been a surge in EV purchases, but the EV manufacturers don't think that's going to really relax or stay. They don't believe that demand will continue. So the Ford CEO said last month that he expects EV sales to fall to 5% of the U.S. market share, and that would slow down from 7% last year. So we're doing all this stuff for 7% of market share, and now it's going to fall to 5%. It's again going to be the early adopters, the people that can afford to buy the EVs without the tax credits, the people who are going to buy them anyway and don't need the tax credits. What is a more sensible solution, and no one seems to really understand, is that perhaps hybrid is a way to go. You have both. You have EVs and you have internal combustion engines, and you actually have a car that can go more than 200 miles without a charge, and it solves a lot of problems. But that wasn't what was promoted. They think the Ford CEO Jim Farley says the EV demand is going to drop off pretty precipitously, and rather than going all electric, automakers are switching to hybrid cars. And now they're even saying that internal combustion engines aren't a bad word anymore. That they're understanding that we can get greater fuel economy. The tailpipe emissions have actually been very successful in reducing the amount of pollution that internal combustion engines emit. We have all kinds of new ways to make it cleaner, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an EV to be a clean vehicle. So there's been an aggressive push for EVs, according to the Ford CEO, but that doesn't mean it's going to pan out. And EVs are not, internal combustion engines are not bad anymore. And the car makers are going back to what they do best, making cool cars, good cars that use internal combustion engines that already have an infrastructure well in place called gas stations. You don't need to put up an entire new infrastructure of EV chargers all across the country, which also, by the way, uses valuable minerals and rare earth elements. It's a conundrum. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, and we'll be right back.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk. Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson. Normally, I would like to have a call-in segment, but we haven't figured that out yet. So I have a few little random ideas and things that are not necessarily connected, but I will try and pull them together for here. So basically, the first thing is a cartoon I found, and it has nothing to do with my topic for this, but it does point out the hypocrisies of it all. They're first at the climate summit, which just ended in Belize, in Brazil, cutting down trees and uprooting indigenous peoples. They said, "Oh, it's going to save the planet. We're going to make everything great." And then the flip side, though, this increase in data centers is actually going to create more demand for electricity, which will create more, wait for it, CO2 emissions and other things. So, do you see the same people? You know why? They're making money on the AI stuff. They really are. But I just thought that was a funny cartoon and I didn't know where else to put it. So I put it here. But we're going to switch gears. You can take the cartoon out. Now, the other thing that's been bothering me for a while, the other thing that's been bothering me for a while is I don't know what Bill Gates is up to. And he at least came clean about the fact that climate change isn't going to endanger us at all, which only took him about 20 years. But the other thing he's been promoting kind of surreptitiously, other than mosquito farms, is he thinks that we should switch to a diet that includes insects. And there's been which I will never do. And then now they're actually putting crickets in dog food. We have to be very careful. Like, I don't want my dogs eating crickets any more than I want them to eat anything else outside that are, creepy. So that's just ridiculous. But they're trying to normalize that. The other thing that's happened is we've had during this environmental movement, the basically saying how meat is terrible for the environment and it's bad for you, and we have to have meatless Mondays and meat cows should be banned and all this stuff, which is all proven completely ridiculous and have all these scientific studies have been completely unfounded. So now there's actually a new study that says that if you have a Mediterranean diet, which is basically the Miami Beach diet, something I try to follow, not 100%, but it's lean beef in a Mediterranean style where you're eating olive oil and you're eating fruits and vegetables and basically a balanced diet with a lot of healthy things. And it's not like a meat rich diet, but you have some meat in it. It's healthier than having no meat. What? A new study found that eating moderate amounts of lean beef in a Mediterranean style diet did not raise a key marker for heart disease. And it's something I've always said. I think we're supposed to eat everything. That's why we have the teeth we do. That's why we're omnivores. We're not just carnivores. Eating moderate amounts of lean beef within a Mediterranean style diet does not raise the marker for cardiovascular disease. And this was based on a research that was done at Penn State. They looked at healthy adults who had ate 4 different diets a week at a time, and then they took their blood tests and see what they were doing. It was reported in the Journal of American Heart Association that if they had between 0.5 and 2.5 ounces of lean meat per day, they didn't have risk of heart disease. Well, 0.25 ounces is not an excessive amount of meat, but it's enough to be maybe a nice little sirloin or a nice little filet. The results were compared with the average American diet, which is between 2.5 and 5.5 ounces of beef. So basically, the notion is it's okay to eat beef. Like most of what we do in our diets, it should be moderation in everything. We're not supposed to be eating a lot of processed foods or saturated foods. We're not supposed to be eating a lot of carbs, even though we need some. And so when people go to this like Atkins style heavy protein meat, that doesn't necessarily mean it's healthier because you need carbs to think. You need carbs too. So the Mediterranean diet, which I was on for many years, is actually a really good balance between a low carb, but you also get to eat fish and you get to eat beef and you get to eat really great. They have great cookbooks where I make frittatas, and they have great banana muffins, and they have a really good assortment of food that is just cooked sensibly. It's not drowning in butter. It's an olive oil, and or avocado oil. It's better oils and better ways of cooking, and it's not fried. It's roasted, or it's braised, or it's baked. The kind of diet actually my father ate most of his life without realizing it was really healthy, but he was a very healthy man. And unlike my mother, who loved to eat steak in the afternoon. So the point was that we've been making cows bad, the villain in all of this. Cows are bad because they emit methane and they have all these problems. But I've spoke about in my Substacks and also in previous shows that a cow can actually feed a lot of people, where in vegan diets actually end up killing a lot of insects and mice and snakes and all these other things just to produce one crop. And it takes hundreds of thousands of bees to produce almond milk, and they end up dying. So why are these things considered better? Why is a vegan diet considered environmentally better? It isn't. And why are they vilifying cows? I don't understand it. So it's like everything else. These environmentalists and these people go wacko and say, um, um, that you have to go all in on one certain thing. But we all know that if you go all in on a certain kind of diet, whether it's you only do smoothies or you do vegan or you only do this or that, your body gets messed up, because the way we're designed is to eat a balance of everything. And that's why the Mediterranean diet has caught on. It's a really easy diet. I mean, I'm not getting any funding to say this, but it's a really easy diet. It is not particularly difficult. And actually, there are days when I just eat my salads and my salmon, and I don't need to eat beef. Or there are days when I don't eat any meat at all. But there are other days when I really want a steak. And I think it's like everything else. It's moderation. But am glad that I don't have to feel guilty about eating a steak either, because that is part of the reason that they're on this planet. Um, I'm making John hungry. Sorry. The other thing John had asked in the comments is, what is SOX? It's sulfuric it's I don't have the chemistry in front of me, John, but it's sulfur and oxygen together, called SOx. It's a greenhouse gas emission that occurs when you do certain manufacturing facilities, and it's emitted. It's like carbon dioxide, but it's really bad. I'll try and think of a better definition of SOx in the break, but it's basically another harmful substance that is, the environmentalists get really worried about. They call SOx and NOx really, really bad pollutants. And so the point is that I was making earlier is that you're all in this rush to create electric vehicles and create batteries that power electric vehicles, but they're ignoring the fact that in the process of doing that, they're avoiding or they're creating more environmental problems, and they're creating pollution. So they're trading one form of pollution for another in the name of saving the planet, which gets back to the whole hypocrisy of it all. I have a feeling that I'm glad, though, that cows are being vindicated. We need beef. We also need the cattle ranchers and all the other farmers and ranchers to do their jobs. And, I'm not going to feel guilty if I have a steak this weekend. I'm really not. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my new YouTube channel, and I'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
And welcome back to the KJ Show. You're watching on my new YouTube channel with me, Dr. KJ. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I've been talking about how we're really not ready for this push for electrification. And there's another overlooked part that gets lost in all the policy stuff. The business of electrification, businesses aren't really embracing it for a lot of the same reasons we can't do other things. They don't have a workforce. It's going to take an entirely new set of skills to manage and install and handle all this electrification that's required. Just as it took a whole new set of skills when we switched from donkeys and carriages and making buggies to cars. And, all of a sudden we still need horses. Cowboys still need them, but they're not quite as ubiquitous as they were, say, in the 1800s. And that's the point. It's a transition that needed to be done gradually. It takes a long time to switch over from being a buggy manufacturer to being a car manufacturer. Well, this electrification is also requiring businesses to get skills that are not right now being trained. They're charging ahead, but they're not really scaling up the way they thought they were going to. And in the process, they're saying, "Oh yeah, we'll do more electrification, but we're going to need more grid, like gas and fossil fuel plants." Only 9% of the businesses that were surveyed in this study thought that they were actually fully electrified, while most of them are not. And they think that 84% of the buildings that were certified in this electrification study said they're trying, but they don't think they can get there. I don't expect you to read this chart, but it sort of shows that very few businesses are able to go all electric. And I don't even know which ones those would be. Maybe commercial businesses, certainly not in manufacturing. But it's interesting that there's this whole, they're still exploring it, but the fact that they don't have a path forward means that businesses are hesitant to make investments in going all electric. Plus, they don't know what the rates are going to be, and it's going to increase the prices. Then that's going to make it really more expensive for them to manufacture what they do. Businesses also say that they see decarbonization as a benefit, but they don't necessarily know how that's going to occur. But they need capital and a coherent policy that doesn't flip-flop, right? Businesses globally ranked decarbonization and cost savings as the most valuable outcomes of electrification, but most of them aren't going to do it. Even in the UK and in Australia, they say they need more stable policies to ensure that this isn't going to just continue to be kind of like a yo-yo policy. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. The biggest drivers pushing companies towards electrification are regulation, net zero targets. Well, I guess those will be going away, and government incentives. Those are going to be going away too. But so it's basically they're being forced to become electrified. And these building codes that they're putting in place in certain cities and countries, certain cities and locations around the country are really, really expensive. I've done some studies in the Northwest where, say, Washington and Oregon have some of the strictest building codes in the United States. And they basically require everybody to replace everything that uses natural gas with electricity. And they want to put in more pumps and more motors and all these things. And in the process, it becomes very expensive. And businesses are moving out of those jurisdictions because they can't afford to meet the building code requirements. So you try to regulate people into compliance and they leave. Another problem is that there's been this energy crisis, 3 recent geopolitical market shifts. European gas prices were high in 2022 and still remain around double-digit costs. And so, they're not thinking that electrification is a solution. There's also a skill shortage and infrastructure bottlenecks, immature vendor solutions, and not really sure that they're going to get their recoup on their return on investments. The electrification challenge is also made even more complicated by this emphasis on data centers and high reliability loads, and so they need interconnection. So we're moving to America and to an economy where we have this increased pressure to create more electricity capacity, but without the infrastructure to meet that need. So what's going to happen? Are the AI data centers going to pay more for electricity so the residential customers get shut out? I don't know. It's something that nobody seems to be talking about. The International Energy Agency said that the gridlock grid bottlenecks could delay approximately 20% of the planned data centers that are going to go up. But they're not going to wait the 13 years that they think it'll take. They're just going to move to somewhere else. And where are they going to move to? They're going to move to places where the electricity is either there or they can afford it. You can go ahead and put up the next one. They're going to move to places that can either afford to do it, or they can build their own nuclear power plants, which is what Bill Gates is doing, restarting 3 Mile Island. Or they're not gonna wait for the American economy or the global economy to catch up to them. These AI centers are gonna charge right ahead. I love this comment. The challenge is making big grid investments at a time when we're also trying to manage the customer bill. We need to put this in a way that balances affordability and allows people to put food on their table, keep the lights on, and keep warm in the winter. That is the problem, the fundamental problem with this push towards electrification. It does raise the costs of electricity. And one of the concerns people have is, well, if you're putting electric data centers in Kansas in the middle of nowhere, and you're basically the infrastructure isn't there, and even if the data centers pay for the infrastructure to be there, that's not the only issue. These data centers also use enormous amounts of water, and that also damages the communities. So there should be some real rational approaches about how we're going to get this data center explosion to happen. And electrification isn't just it's a short-term solution. It isn't really the long-term. What we need is more power plants. I probably virtual power plants or nuclear power plants, small modular reactors to help maybe provide power to the data centers. But we can't shortchange the customers, the residential customers especially, who usually are always at the end of the stick. The other thing that really annoys me, you can take the chart down, is more hidden costs of like beneficial electrification and the things I just talked about. But the one thing that really bothers me is, and I lived in Maryland for a long time, and the state of Maryland decided to force electrification on everyone, including low income customers. Well, natural gas is 4 times cheaper than electricity in Maryland, but they're going to force them to switch over, and they're going to basically require these poor households to reconfigure everything to get rid of their electric stuff and put in gas, and get rid of their gas and put in electric stuff. And now they also don't have enough electricity to supply that because the nuclear power plants that are relying on in Maryland are old. They're actually asking permission to, can we increase the coal generation from that they get from Pennsylvania, and can we keep those wind turbines going? They're not sure they can. So Maryland is pushing for an all-electric economy and all electrification, but are ignoring the fact that this will increase costs for even the most vulnerable people. So it's not just because the AI centers want to have more electricity, it's that the state government wants to have more electricity and force higher prices on their citizens. That it's a very difficult decision, and they're going to have to make these hard choices between paying their electric bill or paying their grocery bill. And this is something I've been very concerned about for a long time. I've raised with the Public Service Commission even. They ignored me. They said it was a short-term problem. Apparently not. And the last in closing, the LA Department of Water did a study that said what happens if you electrify things in low-income customers. Basically, they say households that underconsume energy will benefit from energy-efficient houses, but they may benefit in the form of increased services rather than bill savings. And more fundamentally, if you have a gas house and you switch to electricity, your bills are going up. Short answer. Not a good idea, especially for poor people or low income, moderate income people. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my YouTube channel, and I'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my new YouTube channel. And every Thanksgiving, people watch the Macy's Day Parade. But in our house, we also watch the Westminster Dog Show. It's one of the highlights of our Thanksgiving week. And the reason we do is because we actually love dogs. But I wanted to talk about some of the dogs that are the newer breeds that are every year they're adding in more breeds. So I wanted to focus on some of these new breeds that have come onto the stage in the dog show. And I want to talk about some. We have some really cute pictures. So a new breed, there was almost 2,000 competitors in the dog show last year, and 201 breeds. But now they're actually having 13 rings of show rings. It's amazing. So this is the first one is a Legato. It's an Italian dog that used to be a retriever for downed waterfowl. So it's like their version of a golden retriever. But that was falling out of fashion. So now they're being trained to hunt truffles, which are, of course, a delicacy and very available in Italy. So these dogs are now being trained to hunt truffles rather than retrieving downed ducks and things. So they're basically a new dog that has been adapted to the demands of the culinary the world. Another one that's interesting, the next one is this, isn't he cute with the blue eyes? This is called a Bergamasco sheepdog, and he has blue eyes. It came from part of Persia, and they traveled with nomadic shepherds and watched over flocks of sheep. They're very smart and independent, and they're an excellent choice for a person who appreciates intelligence and self-sufficiency. And he's just adorable. And these are all new breeds that were at the dog show last week. Then the Bergamascos also have this is the other, I'm sorry, I got them mixed up. So that's the Bergamasco. It has a thick woolly coat made up of 3 kinds of hair. They basically look like sheep, the white ones do. And the coat keeps them clean and keeps them warm in wintry climates. They're also apparently, when the coat gets wet, it smells like a sweater. So basically like sheep. So basically they're the sheepdog. The other one I'll tell you about in a second. The coats have a thick woolly coat and basically are another shepherd dog. These are the ones that are originally from Iran. I got mixed up. I'm sorry. Then if you want, the next one is, okay, go back to the other one, the guy with the blue eyes. This is a Spanish water dog, which is actually members of a herding group, but the multi-purpose breed is also shepherding in Andalusia, which is part of Spain. They love water, and they also work towards towing boats to shore. Their stamina and strength is also well known, and the Spanish water dogs are known to be loving and loyal family pets, but they want a job to do, preferably probably herding toddlers. Now, the final one, mine. These are mine, and they were Glenavamall Terriers. Okay, you might have heard them barking in previous episodes. I have 2. They're one of the rarest breeds in the world. There are about 800 of them in the world. They're actually basically a dwarf breed of an Irish Wolfhound. So when the Irish Wolfhound and the Welsh Corgi got together in the Glenavamall Wicklow Mountains, this is what happened. And it's really true. The reason why I was originally interested in them is they're a terrier, but they're not little tiny terriers. The description is they're gentle, less excitable than most terriers. Well, they haven't met mine, but they are bold and spirited. They're actually called the Jeeps of the dog world. They're named for one of Ireland's most remote locales, and they're a docile, strong, no-fuss dog built for hard work. The more important thing is they're not fancy. They are very wiry, but they're not supposed to bark, except mine do, and they are basically ridiculously cute, which is true. So they come in 3 colors, and, I have 2. I have Bonnie, who has a brindle, looks like that one, and then I have Barley Hops, who is a Wheaton and looks like color barley, and he jumps around a lot. So they're wonderful dogs, and they're really good with children, which is why we got them in the first place, but they're actually lovable companions. But I don't even care. Mutts are terrific too. So I just wanted to give a shout out to dogs because God, we would not have a civilization without dogs. And I really love watching the Westminster Dog Show, even more than the Macy's Day Parade. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. You've been watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, on my new YouTube channel. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll have more fun stuff next week. Have a great week.
This has been The KJ Show. Tune in next week as Katherine shares her insights to current changes in the energy industry while drawing on her experience as an energy efficiency consultant for the past 30 years, right here on The KJ Show.